Thanks, Dave. All right, everybody. Good morning. Today is Tuesday, July 12th already. We are holding this meeting virtually, which is actually an important point of procedure because we are looking and hoping for an extension of this platform to continue to be able to hold our public meetings. The first item of business is, though, to have a roll call. I am not seeing Commissioner Hill. Is he out on vacation?
It just said he joined like 5 seconds ago.
There he is. There he is. Great. We're just concerned. I'm thinking he's not yet on vacation. I know you've got your big trip to settle your daughter. All right, we'll do our roll call, but I was just noting, Commissioner Hill, that today is July 12th. A deadline on the virtual platform is approaching. So we'll have to discuss that later in our meeting. Let's get going. Good morning, Commissioner O'Brien.
Good morning. I am here.
Good morning, Commissioner Hill.
Good morning, present.
And good morning, Commissioner Skinner.
Morning, I'm here.
Great, thank you. We're going to get started. Today is July 12th, as I said, and today is public meeting for the Gaming Commission number 384. We'll get started, Commissioner Hill, with the minutes. I do know on the agenda there are 2 sets, but I believe our packet has 3 sets. So just a note.
Yep, that is correct. And I, Madam Chair, move that the commission approve the minutes from October 7, 2021 and May 25th, 2022 that are included in the commissioner's packet, subject to any necessary corrections for typographical errors or other non-material matters.
Second.
I do have an edit on October 7th. And it's a little bit more substantive. It's on page 6 of the packet. And it has to do with the item number 5, appointment of commission treasurer. There's in the second paragraph, it says that she, meaning it's me, clarified that she did not recommend filling the current treasurer role as an interim position, however, period. And then I think before Commissioner Cameron informed that she was available to serve, I believe I said that I had spoken with Commissioner Cameron and asked if she would be available to serve and assume the role of treasurer. So, and then I think that's important because it just then says that she wanted to make sure that she felt she would be available to serve. So if we could just insert that, Judy or Todd or Carrie.
Madam Chair, I can take, excuse me, I can take care of that for you. I'm having a hard time
Okay, great.
on my computer, but if we could meet for a little bit later, I can see exactly what you mean and then just make the update.
Yeah, we can just, I'll go through. Does everybody understand? It's just, she was asked before the meeting and was gracious enough to be willing to serve, and that's indicated there. All right. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's the only one I have in terms of October 7th, and then May 25th. And Commissioner Hill, are we also going to be moving on the last set that was also included, which is October 21? Or is that what you moved on?
I moved October 7th and May 25th.
Yeah, and our packet included October 21, 2021 as well. So a friendly amendment. Yes, Commissioner Skinner.
I'm going to ask that there be separate motions on these because of the October 7th, 2021, I was not present. So I think we need to just separate the 2 out.
That makes good sense. Do you mind doing 3 different motions? We could, it was seconded, so.
If you can
How's
just
that work? We just withdraw that motion.
if you can bear with me one moment, Madam Chair. For some reason, The third one, I thought somebody wanted to hold on. And that's why I didn't include it. And I can't remember why that was. But I can certainly include October 21st if you'd like. If
I think that,
no
so
one has
right
any
now-
objection.
right now, I think Commissioner Skinner is pointing out that October 20, May 25th. No, October 7th. May 25th, you were here, Commissioner Skinner, but October 7th, you weren't here. So she's wondering if you could do two separate motions so that her vote would be clear.
I have no problem with that.
So that means we'd have to withdraw your motion that was seconded.
Yep, which I will withdraw that motion
Okay,
and move that the commission approve the minutes from October 7th, 2021 that are included in the commissioner's packet, subject to any necessary corrections for typographical errors or other non-material matters.
Second.
and then my edit, that would reflect that I had asked Commissioner Cameron in advance of the meeting whether she would consider serving as treasurer, just be inserted.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other edits on those? Okay. Commissioner O'Brien,
Aye.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner,
Abstain, please.
and I vote yes. So 3 yeses and 1 abstention. Then we'll go to the May 25th. Is that what you're thinking?
Yep, then I will move that the commission approve the minutes from May 25th, 2022 that are included in the commissioner's packet, subject to any necessary corrections for typographical errors or other non-material matters.
Second.
Great, thank you. Any edits or discussion on that set? All right. Commissioner O'Brien,
Aye.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner,
Aye.
and I vote yes, 4-0. Thank you.
And Madam Chair, if there's no objection, I can also make a motion for the October 21st. I thought someone had reached out, but unless somebody here has an objection to that, I can move forward with those minutes as well.
Did everyone have a chance to review them in the packet, even though they're not on the agenda? Todd, can we move even though they're not on the agenda?
We should probably hold on them until we put them on the agenda,
Okay,
just to be perfectly transparent about that.
okay. Then we'll just roll those over, Crystal, onto the agenda for the next full public meeting. Thanks. Crystal's videoed off today.
I think someone had reached out. I don't know if it was staff or one of the commissioners, so holding it for another meeting is fine with me.
Okay, and it's probably better because it's not on the agenda. All right, then moving on to, thank you, Commissioner Hill. All right, moving on to administrative update. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning. So I am going to turn that right over to Burke Kane. Good morning, Burke. How are you? To give an update on the casino operations.
Thanks. Thanks, Karen. Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Nice to talk to you on this fine summer day.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'd like to present the mid-July Midsummer on-site casino updates for you. And as Kathy mentioned earlier, if anyone can explain how we're in the middle of July, that would be good too. But nonetheless, first I'd like to report the total number of slot machines and table games at each casino. Encore has 2,728 slot machines, 184 table games, and 15 poker games. PPC has 1,009 slot machines. MGM has 1,527 slot machines, 48 table games, 14 poker games. The total slots in the Commonwealth equal 5,264. Total table games in the Commonwealth, 232. Total poker games in the Commonwealth are 29. Special events and live events. Encore. During the month of July, on Saturdays and Sundays, the Night Shift Brewery is sponsoring a beer garden on the Harborside lawn. Food and beverage are there and can handle and accommodate up to 150 to 200 people. On 7/21, Country Acoustic Music Evening on the South Lawn with Jackson Dean can accommodate up to 600 people. On July 30th, on the South Lawn, radio station promotion that can accommodate up to 200 people, portable bars, live music, and a cornhole tournament. PPC, Friday and Saturday nights, there's live music on the patio and in the Revolution Bar with local bands. And regarding horse racing, the Spirit of Massachusetts is going to be on July 24th, 2022. MGM, assorted bands and DJs are in the Revolution Bar. And recently, throughout the Caldor Cup finals, there was a viewing party for the Springfield Thunderbirds. It was a huge success, although they lost in the finals. July 4th at MGM, there was a garage viewing of the fireworks, 400 to 500 viewers with a special VIP section, hot dogs, sodas, and it was a big success also. And I can take any questions that you folks might have about this update.
Questions for Burke?
I don't have a question, Burke, as much as a statement, and I'm probably going to make it every update that we get on the numbers of slot machines, tables, and poker tables. I'm still concerned that when we look at it statewide, how many poker tables we actually have going, which I think you said was it 30?
29 total.
15 and 14.
For the entire state seems very, very small to me. And I hope that we're sending the message loud and clear to our licensees that at least as one commissioner, I'd like to see those numbers continue to rise when possible. I understand why we're at 29 and I get it, but I think our constituents and the citizens of Massachusetts would like to be able to do a little bit more poker playing at these facilities than they're being allowed to now.
I would agree with that. The other question I would want to ask is, what are the hours? Is there any weekend access coming at EBH for
Yes,
poker?
Encore is in the process of announcing expanded hours. And I didn't want to steal their thunder, but I think that's forthcoming in a very short period of time. It's going to be expanded to some weekend hours and a little bit longer hours, I understand.
Thank you.
Mark, also on the subject of poker, last time when the update was given by Bruce, there was an inquiry, I believe, by Commissioner O'Brien relative to the wait times and wait lists. And Bruce was going to report back, and I understand if you're not prepared to report back today on that inquiry, but just interested in whether
Well, I have some notes here that Louis provided me at Encore. They have a waiting list that becomes active 1 hour before the poker room opens. Let's see. Poker's first come, first serve. Patrons can add themselves to the waiting list after 11 o'clock. And Encore's 15 poker tables fill to 100% capacity around 11 till 12 noon, and usually are flowing at 100% capacity. The waiting line accumulates to around 30 or 40 people after they open. So as far as getting on a waiting list, you can do that on the Poker Atlas system approximately 1 hour before the room opens. Does that help at all?
Is that electronic?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right? Yeah, okay. What about MGM? Any waits at MGM?
No, it looks like I was there just yesterday, so I actually wanted to go down there before the room opened. And of course, it was a Monday. The people start to mill in there and hang around, and they had about 7 tables opening and pretty full play. And there's only about 6 or 8 people waiting to play out in the lobby there.
And what's the process for waitlist there? Same thing, electronic or?
I understand it to be just walk up and sign in. I'd be interested to see how the weekends are going. We can follow up on that for you also. I haven't heard that there's a huge wait time at MGM.
Joe, when do we hear from the 2 licensees with table games again? Not for a couple of months?
With respect to
Quarterly reports.
our quarterly reports, oh yeah, probably in August, we'll be having those quarterly reports.
Well, then I guess probably for our next meeting, Burke, if you can coordinate again with Bruce and Joe, if necessary, to just continue to get as many details around poker. And I also probably should be a little bit better educated to know how does that table game number compare to pre-COVID? Is it pretty healthy?
Yeah, I think it's relative. MGM, I think, pared down some table games, but I think Encore was running about the same. We're going to check that out for you and report back to that on that.
Yeah. So I think we really want to hear specifics again on poker, about wait list, about hours, days and hours, and table numbers, and any plan for continued expansion. I received just over the weekend another inquiry, somebody who found me via social media, a very polite message, again inquiring about when would poker be expanding at Encore. So we are, and that's just anecdotal, but we do receive many inquiries about, as Commissioner Hill suggested at the top of this discussion, about the need for expanded access. The total table games, separate and apart from poker games, it's 232 in the Commonwealth. So I guess perhaps maybe at the next meeting too, we could find out how that compares pre-COVID. 48 for tables for MGM and 184 for Encore. All right. On a different note, Burke, I saw a billboard that indicated that Machine Gun Kelly was at Memoir, and it caught my eye. And I looked just now, and the date was, it happened already in June. I would have thought that might be kind of a big draw, but I haven't heard anything about concerns regarding crowds or the folks leaving Memoir. Do you have any sense on those issues, or maybe Loretta would chime in on this, if there's any concern about numbers as they exit Memoir when it's a crowded venue? Any concerns being raised?
Well, we would have to look at that. I didn't hear, it was never brought up on our weekend reports that we get, that there was any issue regarding that weekend in particular. But we can follow up on that also.
Yeah. I think maybe that's another good suggestion, is for us to be, it's actually really helpful publicity for the properties to be able to give advanced briefings on what is anticipated going forward for the properties, and crowd management, I think, is important for us to think about, right, commissioners? Okay, Loretta, do you have anything to note on that?
No, we can try to add that moving forward. And with respect to the event you mentioned, I also didn't hear anything from GEU nothing was highlighted on their notables, and I didn't get any alerts on that.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm not sure what, I don't know how the crowds are comparing at Memoir pre and post COVID either. So that's just another question as we think about the venues. All right. Any further questions for Burke? Good to see you, Burke.
Great job.
Okay, that's it for the administrative update, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. All right, then we're going to move right on to item number 4. Good morning, Dr. Lightbound, Racing Division. You've got a couple of items today.
Good morning.
Good
So
morning.
our first item is a request by Plainridge Park Casino for to use promotional funds for a summer handicapping series. Back in 2020, pre-COVID, they ran a smaller version called the Winter Wonderland Handicap series in February. So they had asked for the request for promo funds in January of that year. And that was a successful endeavor. And they were going to bring back a more expanded handicapping series in March of 2020. And it was actually on our agenda at the meeting we canceled partway through due to COVID. So now Steve O'Toole has a request in to bring back an expanded handicapping seminar for series for this year. And we're looking forward to it. Chad Bork, our financial analyst, is here and he will go into more detail on it. And Steve O'Toole is also on if anyone has any questions. So, Chad?
Thanks, Alex. Morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning. So as Alex mentioned, I have a request for the Harness Horse Promotional Trust that was submitted by Plainridge. The way this works is that each month funds are deposited into the trust that our licensees can use to engage customers in hopes of increasing customer attendance and therefore handle. Distributions are made upon the Commission's approval of first a request for consideration, and then if that's approved, there'll be a request for reimbursement. So again, this one is for the first step, which is the consideration, and the request is in the amount of $26,000 for the summer handicapping series. The contest will begin on July 23rd and ends on September 5th. Customers are free to enter, and there will be weekly prizes along with the grand prize on September 5th. I did review the request and all the documentation that was submitted to ensure that all the requirements were met, and the fund does have the current balance in the fund is a little over $270,000. So there's enough money to go around and fund the series. So I do consider the approval to be in good order. So I do recommend approval. With that, Steve O'Toole is also on the line with us. And if you want to go over the details, Steve, or answer any questions.
Good morning, Steve.
Sure. Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you, Alex and Chad. So as Alex mentioned, we held a very small handicapping contest in the winter of 2019, 2020, and it went over very well. And so then we were expanding that into the COVID year, but we never actually did get to pull that one off. That was about $50,000 or $60,000 in $10,000 weekly contests. This one is a little bit different. What we've decided to do this year, from some feedback from our customers, which they love the concept. We do get a lot of out-of-state participants that are over the border in New Hampshire and under the border in Rhode Island. And what we decided to do was to run 7 weekly contests, and the customers would earn points for where they finished in those particular contests leading up to a $10,000 final. And that final would be held on Labor Day. So we could mix in some of our live racing as well on the final contest, the $10,000 contest, because we race on live on that particular day. Saturday obviously is the day where we have the most content and the most customers show up to bet on the tracks around the country. So we'll have a nice menu to offer, especially in the summer months when the Saratoga Thoroughbred meet is going, because that's very popular with our simulcast guests. So we look forward to this contest, especially with the twist, and my staff's ready to go. They've done these in the past, and they know how to handle them. The one thing that we didn't have it done in time for this meeting, we decided very late to maybe engage a social media group in order to push it out through social media and maybe really get a good pop for this. And we did have a meeting last Friday with a social media group called Foundry. They seem to be a very good. They did come back with a proposal. So I will probably bring that proposal forward at your next meeting, but it wasn't ready in time for this particular meeting. It looks to be about another $15,000. And they would be able to really push it out on social media, provided if we provide them the tools that we have through our marketing firm, through our marketing department, and push it out through not only our platforms, but they would create their own excitement through it. And they really do a nice job. And we've been trying to get them on board here for quite a while to promote some of our live stuff as well. So we've been talking to them for quite a while. And when we came up with the handicapping contest, we very late in the game after I had submitted this, we decided maybe that was the way to go with this as well. If the commission thought that was a good idea, we would definitely pursue that.
Steve, if we wait till the next meeting, is that still timely for you? Next meeting, Crystal, if you're, I know Crystal's having some technical difficulties.
I am here.
Yeah, the next meeting is scheduled for
July 28th.
Right. July 28th may have a couple challenges now on that date, but it would be near that unless we added to an agenda setting meeting. Steve, does that make it untimely for you to really benefit from the social media?
It does, but it's our fault. We didn't think of it until the 11th hour, to maybe do something like this and engage it.
We don't care about that. We want to just be able to be effective.
We think it's a great idea. The commission might not think so and not give us the approval to go forward with it, but we think it's we haven't done a lot of the social media stuff. A lot of the racetracks around the country haven't really taken advantage of that. There are a couple. We were very impressed by this group. They knew nothing about racing and they came back within a week. They knew the tracks that were doing it well, how they were doing it, and how they could improve on that. So we were impressed with them. They would obviously be available to appear before the commission as well and give you some of their ideas. But we thought it would be, after meeting with them, we thought it would be a good idea.
Well, I do understand from Chad and Dr. Lightbound that there are requirements that you have to meet under the statute for us to move forward on that kind of request. Karen, and I think maybe we can look at our calendars and see if we could convene something timely, if that's a request that Dr. Lightbound and Mr. Burke want to go forward with. Commissioners, do you agree? That's on the social media piece.
Yeah,
I do. The only thing I would add is whether they could also focus on responsible gaming in terms of if they're going to start to pull people in on that, whether you just address that part of it when you're coming back in front of us, if you're going to move forward.
Good point. Thank you.
And maybe Alex, you can have Long and Mark clear work with Steve on that piece. Okay. All right. So I had noted, and I'm sure the others had noted that was a possibility in your document. So we'll just try to be as accommodating as we can be, Steve, to address that request. So right now, thank you, Chad, for the nice one-pager. Really helpful to set the stage. The request right now is for that 26,000. And to be clear, following up on Commissioner O'Brien, that will include some responsible gaming, or does that also need to be included? Were you anticipating that?
We brand all of our materials with the responsible gaming, and
That's right.
also the game sense is always around on whenever we have these kind of promotions, and they're going to be available on Spirit of Mass Day, and so they're going to be in the area as well.
Commissioner O'Brien, Commissioner Hill, Commissioner Skinner, questions for Steve or Chad or Dr. Lightbound?
I have a question, but it has to do, I'm still learning the terminology as a newbie, and I've tried to understand it. I've looked it up on Wikipedia. I've done all this good stuff, and I still just would like maybe, and we can take this offline, Dr. Lightbound and Steve, if we need to. Can you explain to me exactly what is handicapping a race?
That
Sure.
was precisely my question, Commissioner Hill, so thank you.
I'd like to think I know how to bet on stuff, but this, I've always been a little confused about handicapping.
So the sports bettors and the horse players are kind of similar. They're not like the casino players or the table games players. They study sometimes ad nauseum. Sometimes they have paralysis by analysis, but they all come up with their own particular ways of handicapping. And it can be as simple as the most catchiest name in the race to mathematical equations that that the particular handicapper would think that would come out to the outcome of the race in their favor. So it takes time, it takes positions in races, it takes the length of the race, it takes the conditions of the track, the weather, and some guys really spend a lot of time with it, and other people don't spend quite as much time with it. But they, one thing is for sure: when you run a handicapping contest like this, everybody wants to be, the smartest handicapper and the best handicapper amongst that group of people who enjoy handicapping races. So handicapping is just a way to figure who's going to win the race, who's going to win, who's going to be second, who's going to be third. And it's kind of like, the guys that set the lines for the games and stuff for sports betting. They have to handicap the games, more or less.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions for Steve or Alex or Chad?
I just
I
have a
actually-
follow-up on the question. Oh, sorry, Chad, go ahead.
Skinner.
Oh, no, so I was also just gonna mention, so in the packet, under the handicapping series, you'll actually see if I can, this is the paralysis by analysis. So that's for one race, that a customer would actually break down to do their research on who they think is gonna come in each place.
That's a good point that Chad brings up. I forgot that was in the packet. What the customers will get, they'll get 10 races to handicap. They'll get the rules, an entry form, and the 10 races will be in that, and it'll be free to the customers that want to participate. And they'll take each one of those races and all that information that Chad just showed you and that's in the packet. They'll take all that information and try and come up with the best possible scenario for them, for their picks.
So you
And
basically.
that's for the entire race. So they're wagering on who's going to come in what place, all the way from, on this sheet that you've provided, there are seven horses. So they kind of predict the order in which they will cross the finish line. Is that?
They only in this particular contest, they only need to predict the winner. So it's a mythical $2 wager, and then whatever that horse pays, that goes accumulates for each race. So it's just they only have to pick one horse out of the out of the 7 on that particular race. There could be 9, there could be 5, there could be 12. It'll all depend on the races that we designate, and we'll designate 10 races, and then whatever that, or if you don't pick a winner in the first race, you don't get any point, you don't get any dollar value. And then if you win the second race and the horse pays $12, let's say, then you'll have $12 in your account. And then at the bottom, at the end, after we total up all 10 races, that'll determine the order finish for the day.
So it's the accumulation of the wins that makes this handicapping series different from just the regular races. Is that right?
Well, there's win betting, for the regular races. You can take $2 out of your pocket and bet at the windows as well. But this is for the contest. It's just a mythical wager, and it's only for win. For our regular races, we have win, play, show, exacta, trifecta, superfecta, wicked high five, which is pentafecta. You pick the correct order in the first 5. So there's all kinds of exotic wagering going on just about every race. But for a handicapping contest, that would really get cumbersome. And so what we do is it's free to enter, so there's no money going back and forth. It's a mythical $2 wager, and then those 10 races, if you have 6 winners, we add up what the horses paid for those 6 races, and that's your total dollar figure, and the highest total dollar figure, mythical total dollar figure at the end of the contest wins the contest, second place, third place, and so forth.
Okay. I don't know that I completely get it, but if I have any other questions, I can certainly take them offline. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
And I'm correct in saying, so if I was to go and do this, hypothetically, I'm going to be given a very different book when I walk into the casino than what I'm used to getting. You're going to have a lot more information to try and, like you said, is it wet outside, where they play? I get it now.
Well, that information is always available to the handicappers and to the customers. But the difference with our contest is that we're going to be picking races. We might have 2 from Saratoga. We might have a couple from Belmont. We might do one out at the harness race out at the Meadows or in Philadelphia. So it'll be 10 different races. So it'll be very challenging because it'll be different tracks. Some handicappers love to just bet Belmont, or love to just bet Gulfstream or Santa Anita or Saratoga. So this will challenge them because they'll be some of them will be out of their comfort zone, because we're going to mix it up and force them to bet on different tracks and keep them, keep them, not confused, but, try to keep it so that everybody has a pretty good chance.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Steve.
And
Thank you, Commissioner.
And Commissioner Skinner, none of this is clear to any of us. So we learn every day with respect to horse racing, and Dr. Lightbound and Chad, you're great resources, and thank you, Steve. Commissioner O'Brien, are you all set?
I am. I paused a little bit on the hypothetically out of Commissioner Hill.
If I see him there, I'll let you know.
I think he knows more than we know.
Well, I have to admit that I'm one that, favors the name alone, right? So, yeah. After the Kentucky Derby, this past Kentucky Derby, I think all bets are off, right? That was a good one, showing how things can be upside down. Thanks. And just to note, given that we're looking a lot about advertising and the use of the word free, in this case, it truly is free. There's no risk at all for anyone who arrives at Plainridge Park Casino that day. Could go and have an afternoon there and play for free completely without any risk whatsoever.
We are keeping it 18 and above to stay with the pari-mutuel rules.
Right. Okay. But otherwise, they're not taking any other risk anywhere.
Correct.
It's great. It's a lot of fun. All right. Any further questions? All right. Thank you for the thorough report. And again, Chad, thank you for your one-pager. Really helpful.
Sure.
And now we've got
So-
your other piece of business. Oh, so sorry, Commissioner Bryan.
I
Oh,
would
we
just
do
didn't
need a
know the
vote.
mo-
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I move the commission approve the expenditure of $26,000 from the Harness Horse Promotional Trust Fund in accordance with Chapter 128A, Section 5G, for the purposes described in the materials in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today.
Second.
Any further discussion or edits? Okay, Commissioner O'Brien,
Aye.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner,
Aye.
and I vote yes, 4-0. All right. So then, thank you so much. And then with respect to the next item, the local aid payments, Chad?
Yeah,
Thank-
so aid is payable to each city and town where racing activities are conducted. The amount of aid is determined at a rate of 0.35% of the handle from the quarter that ended 6 months prior to the payable date. Today's request is for the quarter ending on June 30th. And so that was calculated by using handles from October, November, and December of last year. And so with that, the city of Boston would receive $112,323.20. The town of Plainville, $29,406.56. The town of Raynham, $16,899.72. The city of Revere would receive $56,178.44 for a total of $214,807.92 for the quarter. I did include a detailed breakdown of all the amounts and the calculations in the packet, and says ask for a vote.
Any questions for Chad on the local aid payments?
Madam Chair, I do have a couple questions.
Okay, go right ahead.
Last time, Chad and Alex, we voted to approve these payments. The line item was underfunded, but I understand that's since been corrected. Is that right? I know Derek's on, so maybe Derek can speak to it, but is there adequate funding now?
There is $297,710.96 unexpended right now. I think Chad said the total expenses are $207,000, so we should have enough. We do have enough for this payment, and there'll be $90,000 left in the bank. The reason it was underfunded last time is because we had a supplemental request in through the legislature. That request did pass between the time that the commission approved the vote and when we went to make the payment. We did think we would have to do a partial payment on that, which we have had to do in previous fiscal years, but we do not have to do this year because the SUP did go through.
Okay, thank you. And this is for FY22.
So local aid is paid out per calendar year. So this would be for Q2 of calendar year 2022.
But it would hit against fiscal year 2022 money. State
Yeah.
fiscal year 2022 money because it's paid out 6 months in arrear. The next one will hit against FY23 money.
Okay, thank you. That's clearer. Chad, I did note the calendar year 2022 in the subject of your memo, but I just wanted to confirm what Derek just said.
I actually should put on there how it affects fiscal year too.
Thank you.
I usually, I have the information for both. So going forward, I'll do that.
Any further questions? Do I have a motion?
Certainly. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Commissioner
No,
Hill.
go ahead, Hill.
Commissioner Hill, she yields to you.
All right. Well, then on that, I move that the commission authorize the quarterly local aid payments for the final quarter of 2021 to the city of Boston, the town of Plainville, town of Raynham, and the city of Revere, in the specific amounts reflected in the memorandum in the commissioner's packet, totaling $214,807.92.
Second.
Any further questions, edits, discussion? Okay, Commissioner O'Brien,
Aye.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner,
Aye.
and I vote yes, 4-0. Thanks. Thanks so much, Alex and Chad. Excellent work.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, we're going to move right on then. Our next item of business, which is item number 6 for the legal division. Good morning, Todd. And I think we're moving right to Carrie as well. Good morning, Carrie. You're in your office.
I am. Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. So you'll recall at the last meeting, we discussed 205 CMR 103, the Commission's regulation governing confidentiality of records and certain public records law issues. And at that time, you voted to begin the promulgation process to rescind that regulation on the condition that certain sections of the reg were preserved as policy language before the regulation rescission was finalized. So that regulation is currently working its way through the promulgation process and will come back to you for a final vote in September. So there were 3 sections that we had discussed at the time, the so-called purple sections. And I just want to apologize, the numbers on the agenda are incorrect. I sent the wrong numbers, the section numbers to Crystal. So the 3 sections we had talked about, the purple sections that would be moved to policy language were 103.03, official custodians, individuals responsible for personal data systems, 103.09, information provided in response to requests for applications, phase 1 and phase 2, and 103.14, security protocols, restricted access. So at the last meeting when we talked about this, I had said that I would bring these sections back at this meeting just for formal policy adoption. So in your packet, you have the language from those 3 sections of the regulation as individual documents to be preserved as policy. We had also discussed at the last meeting that there may be some possible amendments to these sections. So for example, I know that one of them has references to 205 CMR 103, which of course would need to be removed when the regulation rescission goes through. One of them we discussed would be incorporated into another policy that the IT department is drafting. One deals with certain designations, and the commission might want to revisit those designations at some point. But just for today's purposes, this was my understanding at least, we were just looking for a formal vote just to adopt this language as policy exactly as it exists in the regulation, just to ensure that there's no gap in this language existing between the time when the regulation is rescinded and we come forward with updates to these policies. So the regulation will be in effect until at least late September. And then between now and then, we will work on proposed changes to the policy language and bring those proposals back to you in the coming months for discussion. And then ultimately, we would bring these policies in whatever form they end up in back for final vote on amendments after the regulation has been formally rescinded. So based on the current promulgation timeline, the earliest date that would be September 30th. So while the regulation is still in effect until that time, we will have duplicate language, but we just want to ensure that we don't end up with any conflicting language anywhere. So if you have any questions on that, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions? Commissioner O'Brien.
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to say thank you. I know that I was this is a sticking point for me when we were here the last time, so I appreciate you turning around this fast.
Yep, of course.
Okay, Commissioner Skinner, Commissioner Hill, are you all set? So you're all set? Your request then would be to adopt all 4 as set forth with the understanding that they're going to be tweaked and put into more of a policy format that's helpful for you and your team moving forward and all of us. And that will happen sort of as we go through the promulgation process of the regulation.
Exactly.
So, but by adopting this, we're preserving them formally today.
Exactly.
So, commissioners, are you comfortable moving on all 4 in one motion?
That's 3.
There's 3. There's 1 and 2 are sort of the one category. on their own.
Oh, no, I read 4 last night, guys. I'm joking. There's 3, thanks. All right, so the 3.
I'm comfortable with it. I don't know if everyone else is.
I am too.
Okay, then I'll take a motion. Thank you on the 3.
Certainly, Madam Chair, I move that the commission adopt the following policies as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today, namely official custodians policy, individuals responsible for personal data systems, policy governing information provided in response to requests for applications phases 1 and 2, and lastly, security protocols and restricted access policy.
Second.
Okay, any questions, discussion? Commissioner O'Brien,
Aye.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner,
Aye.
and I vote yes, 4-0. Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
Carrie,
you.
well done. And now we turn to Judy, I believe, on the next set of regulations, which I understand are at the beginning of the promulgation process. Commissioner Skinner, I think you had some questions about the about whether we should move forward on this. I didn't get a chance because of my own issues, my own schedule, that I didn't get a chance to hear from you. So I wanted to give you the chance to address that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not interested in making public comment on that inquiry.
Okay, so we can move forward.
You can.
Okay, great. All right. We're starting on in our packet.
Yes,
with
good morning,
respect-
Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioners.
Yeah, thank you. On our packet, the beginning is, just so you know, page 39.
That's correct.
Good morning.
Good morning. So as part of the Commission's regulatory review process, the legal department, in coordination with the IEB, has brought forward suggested amendments on 4 regulations within 205 CMR Chapter 138, detailing uniform standards of accounting procedures and internal controls. Given the fact that we are making 4 suggested changes within 1 chapter, we have 1 cover sheet for you to review and possibly approve, and an additional 1 small business statement, as opposed to 4 separate cover sheets and 4 separate small business impact statements. So we are seeking your review and approval of these changes that we've made to begin the promulgation process today. I think it would be best to walk through them chronologically, but I'm happy to do whichever the commissioners prefer.
Commissioners?
Chronological is fine.
Okay. So the proposed amendments specifically are to clarify the Chapter 138, each 4 of them, but starting from the top, we are on pages 41 through 43 of the meeting packet, starting with 138 subsection 02, internal controls. As I'm sure the commissioners are aware, 138.02 details the administrative and internal procedures the licensee is required to create and submit before commencing operations and their approval, as detailed in subsection 1. It additionally details the process by which a licensee can modify, change, or create new internal controls after opening, and also provides a list of what internal controls shall include in subsection 4. As it stands, the regulation is written so that modifications may not be implemented or approved until after a 15-day period has spanned without the response of the executive director, or in cases in which the executive director has signed off. As it stands beyond that, however, and beyond subsection 2, that talks about a reasonable implementation stage, in the second paragraph of subsection 2, there is no time-based system to ensure that the licensee has actually implemented its system of internal controls after a secondary change is made, or if the commission sees fit to make a change or ask that a change be implemented. So in speaking to the IEB, or specifically Burke and Searle, they've suggested that we add a 30-day requirement within subsection 7. This is on page, excuse me.
That's page 43.
43, correct. Thank you. That governs implementation after approval is received, as mentioned and carried out in subsection 2 and 3 above in the regulation. So we feel that adding this 30-day requirement, if the commission so approves, will ensure a response by licensee to ultimately confirm to the commission that they have implemented the protocols that the executive director and the IEB have suggested. And it'll also keep the IEB from having to continually ask and ensure that protocols have been successfully implemented. So with that, I can pause here for questions. I'm also joined by Field Manager Kane, and I think Compliance Manager Carpenter may be on a separate training at Plainridge Park. I'm not sure if he's here today.
Yeah, I think there is human trafficking training going on right now, so he may be at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am here.
Oh, sorry.
Nice girl.
Can I ask this question? Judy, is it clear, and I have to confess that I wasn't able to study the reg as it's written, and I know it's the beginning of the process, so I'm not nervous about that. I can, but to understand, I wanted to make sure I understood that the language added the trigger for the 30 days is clear.
Yes, so that's in subsection 7. It's after the approval section or the approval of a modification to a licensee's system has already occurred. So within, if you forgive me for pulling the entire reg, but if you do scroll up to page 41, subsections 2 and 3 kind of begin this process by a 15 business day submission period. So that's roughly 3 weeks before the executive director and the IEB would mandate a 30-day implementation period. So there is a substantial amount of time that we are giving to the licensee. However, we do wish to make sure that the processes are implemented within a timelier period.
And then our approval is kind of a formal approval, so they actually know that date.
That's correct.
Okay, good. And no language was taken out. It's just the
yes,
was added.
Yes, we are simply adding language to kind of have more clarification, and you'll notice that in all 4 regs that we discussed today.
Okay. But today's discussion will help me understand the reg better. So thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay, any questions, other questions? Sorry to jump forward there, commissioners. Commissioner Skinner, Commissioner Hill, Commissioner O'Brien, questions?
Just briefly, Judy, if they don't comply within 30 days, is that just a normal process in terms of IB perceiving any kind of violation?
Yes, so I think it goes into identifying areas of non-compliance, in which case I think that comes later on today that we discuss in the meeting, situations of non-compliance.
Thanks.
Any additional questions before we move forward? Okay. All right, so next I have for you on page 44 of your packets, section 0.05, a system for ensuring employees are properly licensed or registered. During the IEB's review of their regulations during the reg review process, it was noted that subsection 2J towards the end of your document had language cut off during a previous print of the register. So we've located the previously approved language and added it back into the section. It's listed in section J on the red line. So now the sentence reads, the date on which the information submitted in the report was compiled.
So is this a Scrivener's error, or do we need to vote to change this?
I do think it would be best to vote to approve the amendment, given the fact that the actual regulation, as a whole, is showing blank. It does need to be amended.
It just stopped at the, right?
Yes, the date on which is where how it reads on West and on the state website.
There's a grammatical term for that. Incomplete sentence, right? Okay. I had wondered about that too. That's why I asked Judy, is there anything that was taken out? But again, that's just an addition. All right, well, we need to fix that. Good. And this is all part of the reg review process, correct?
Yes, I can't take credit for this one. This is, I think, another Burke and Sterl special. They noted it and brought it forward for reg review. So the system works.
Yeah.
Tip of the cap to Sterl on that.
That's great. Thank you, Sterl. All right. Any questions on that one now that we know it truly was just dangling out there? Okay.
Okay. Next for you is 138.07 floor plans on pages 45 through 47 of your packet. Again, similar to 138.02, this talks about floor plans specifically before opening. It details what the floor plans should be noting. The system in which temporary floor plans or temporary amendments to floor plans are made in subsection 2, and then amendments to approved floor plans. I've grabbed the entire reg for you just to kind of note exactly how the process is made. But similar to the change that we made in 138.02, the IAB is seeking to place a time requirement on how often a licensee submits their approved floor plans or any amendments thereto. We've added language instilling a quarterly filing requirement every 3 months or upon the request of the Bureau within subsection 4 that governs both amendments to approved floor plans and the floor plan approval process.
Commissioners, any questions for Judy on this item? Commissioner Skinner? No questions, all set. Commissioner Hill, all set. Commissioner O'Brien?
All set.
Okay, thank you. Right, moving on then to the last one.
Fantastic. So next for you on page 48 of your packet is 138.62, payment of table game progressive payout wagers. As it's currently written, this regulation only requires a licensee to submit a system of internal controls detailing when one patron wins a progressive jackpot. So we are asking the licensees to submit policies that would govern instances when 2 or more patrons would win a progressive jackpot during the same instance of play, whether they're seated at the same table or not. As it's currently enacted at one establishment and not the other, the current protocols allow for an entire jackpot to be won to one player or awarded to one player. And the second patron, if a second patron does win at the same instance or during their same round of play, they theoretically are awarded the reset amount. So if there is a $100,000 progressive jackpot awarded, the first player would receive $100,000 and the second player would receive a $20,000 reset. And so what we are attempting to do here is to provide a more equitable solution, in which case we would have an equitable distribution of the jackpot and the reset amount so that both patrons would come away in the same hypothetical with an even split of the jackpot and an even split of the reset amount. So both walking away with a winning of $60,000. So with that, we would like the licensees to uniformly offer that equitable distribution, and also submit to the commission those protocols and policies that would govern that process taking place. And I will.
So does
Yes.
this happen? Have we had a circumstance of the licensee who does not function this way? Have we had an issue at all?
Burke, would you like to?
Yeah, no, it hasn't happened.
Not yet.
The probability of winning it once is hard to do. We just wanted to avoid, if it did happen, being faced with this.
Right. Okay. Great.
Any other questions on this one, commissioners?
When you make that kind of a change, Burke and Judy, Yeah, I understand we have the rules changing. Is there any kind of a public service announcement or anything like that to for a certain amount of time where that a change in a rule like that is highlighted? Or does it just happen in the rules and
It's not really a rule change for the game per se. It's just
I see.
administrative payout of what would happen. And we have one casino handling it one way. And in our review of the submissions, we noticed the other casino was doing it the other way.
I
If you
see.
and I, Kathy, sat down at the table and you were in the first seat and I was in the third seat, and we both won, you would get the big jackpot simply because you sat in the first seat. So we were just trying to make it that round of play fair for the two people.
Right, I understand the equity. I was just wondering in terms of, I know this doesn't happen very often, so it wouldn't be a surprise, but if, I just wondered if how these kinds of changes get communicated.
So the
Back to,
commission, oh, pardon me, Madam Chair, I
no, just
apologize.
the communication plan. A former commissioner, Commissioner Stebbins, loved to talk about, what's the communication plan?
I think I know what you're getting at. The commission does have a separate reg within 147 that details patron notice specifically, and I could be wrong on this off the top of my head, so please feel free to correct me, Todd, Carrie, and Caitlin. I do feel that it's 147.03. It deals with patron notice and how often the licensee needs to notice the patron of a change. I don't want to speak out of pocket, but I think that would be where we find our answer. And I do feel that it's roughly 30 minutes before a start of gameplay. Although, as Burke says, this is not a change to a specific rule game. It's more of a change to how progressive wager policies are implemented. So
I see.
Yeah.
Thank you. Loretta, I see you did light up.
I did, but Judith really said everything that I could have thought to say better than I probably would have said it. So, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, it's really helpful. Thank you. And you knew the number off the top of your head.
I don't know what I ate for breakfast this morning, so there's a trade-off.
Well, whatever it was, share later. Okay, good.
So
Well, that's really helpful. Thank you. Anything
Yes.
else, commissioners? Okay. So we have the 4. I'm right on that, right? It is 4, is it 3?
That's correct. And the accompanying small business impact statement on
That's right.
pages 49 and 50.
Yeah, and this would start the promulgation process and it would go into public commentary, right?
Right. Well, from here, we would need to submit these amendments to the LGAC. They would stay there for approximately 14 business days or calendar days. I may be wrong on that one. And so there is a lengthy period of time here and more time that we could add to this process if the commission so desires. But once we do announce the hearing date, we have those 21 days before the commission can vote to finalize these changes. So I would anticipate with the entire process, and I do apologize, my SharePoint is acting up this morning, so I don't have the calendar in front of me. I would estimate things being formalized or finalized in October.
Good start. All right. Commissioners, do you have any further questions for Judith or Todd, Judy? Sounds like you're
Great job. And I would be ready to make a move if you would allow me to do that, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, Judy, you heard Commissioner Hill say great job. I kind of cut him off. Thank you, Commissioner Hill.
Then I would move that the commission approve the small business impact statement and the amendments to 205 CMR 138.2, 138.05, 138.07, and 138.62, all as reflected in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today. And further, that the staff be authorized to take the steps necessary to file the required documentation with the Secretary of the Commonwealth and proceed with the regulation promulgation process.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay. Commissioner O'Brien,
Aye.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner,
Aye.
and I vote yes, 4-0. Great, good work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, commissioners.
All right, commissioners, it's 10 after 11. Legal is complete, and now we're about to have our presentation from Long and Mark and GameSense. Would you like to take a brief minute before we move on? I just lost all my faces, sorry. So
I would
can't-
like to, Madam Chair, if that's okay.
Okay, thanks, Commissioner Skinner, because I couldn't see anyone's faces. So it is right now 11:10. What if we reconvene at about 11:25? Okay, 11:25 it is. Thank you for those at GameSense. I will just hold you for a couple of minutes. Thank you. Okay, we are reconvening meeting number 384. Dave, I think we're all set. Thank you so much.
All set.
Perfect, thank you. Oh, good morning, Amy. I see you right there. Nice to see you.
You as well.
Thank you. Okay, we'll get started. Because we're on virtual platform, I'll just confirm everybody's here. Commissioner O'Brien.
I am here.
Great. Commissioner Hill.
Present.
And Commissioner Skinner.
I'm here.
Great, we're all set. Good morning. Thank you for waiting briefly while we just collected ourselves. Mark, I'll turn it over to you and Long. Thank you.
Great. Good morning, Madam Chair, and good morning, Commissioners. I'm actually going to just turn this right on over to Long to introduce the GameSense team and get them started on the quarterly report. So, Long.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. The Extended Gaming Act includes a number of mandates to ensure the successful implementation of expanded gaming, including the prevention of and mitigation of social impacts and costs. Chapter 23K, Section 2116 requires casino operators to provide an on-site space for independent substance abuse, compulsive gambling, and mental health counseling service, and establish a program to train gaming employees in identification of and intervention with customers exhibiting problem gaming behavior. To fulfill this mandate, the Commission adopted GameSense, an innovative responsive gaming program that equips casino patrons who chose to gamble with information and tools to adopt positive play behaviors and offers resources to individuals in distress from gambling-related harm. The Commission has a contract with the Massachusetts Council on Gaming and Health to operate the GameSense information centers, located on site at all Massachusetts casinos and staffed 16 to 24 hours daily by trained GameSense advisors. Today, the Massachusetts Council on Gaming and Health staff, Marlene Warner, Executive Director, Chelsea Turner, Director of Responsible Gambling, Phil Sherwood, Director of Communications and Marketing, and Amy Gabriella, Senior GameSense Advisor, will share with you GameSense activities and highlights from the fourth quarter of fiscal year 2022. So I have the honor to introduce Chelsea Turner, Director of Responsible Gaming, to start.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and other commissioners. Thank you all for indulging us with a little bit of your time today. We know that we tend to want to talk a lot because we love coming before you, but today we're going to try to keep our remarks to a half an hour. So with that said, thank you, and here we go. Next slide.
Thanks, Chelsea.
Today, we're going to cover a bunch of things. I'm going to start by just giving you the sort of year-end numbers by property. I'm going to leave the Play My Way specifics to Amy, who's also going to talk about some of the activities that we're running at each of the properties that are, unique to this time of year, and some of the different things that we're doing. Then she will talk about our Excellence Awards. Then she will turn it over to Phil Sherwood, who will talk a little bit about a video. It's not a GameSense video, it's a Mass Council video, but it came out so good, we just kind of have to share it with you. It's regarding problem gambling. It's, I think, one of the coolest things we've produced in a while. And also live chat. He's going to talk to you about live chat, where we're at on that. Marlene will finish it off by talking about sort of where we've been over the course of the last year, where we're going in FY23, and of course, how excited we are to be hosting the NCPG conference right in our hometown in Boston next week. Next slide. So here we're looking at the Encore Boston Harbor numbers, and I won't focus too much on the quarterly because you guys have time to go back and look at them. Of course, you can ask me questions at the end if you'd like, but if you look at the year-end totals, they're really, truly remarkable. If you look at the demonstrations and exchanges, as you know, those are the media exchanges where we're talking about GameSense, where we're talking about how to budget properly, how we're talking about how to game safely, or where we're doing a VSE. Those numbers are up huge. 17,000, almost 17,500 demonstrations this year, huge jump over last year at 11,000. And while the exchanges are down slightly, the demonstrations are up so much that the net effect of that is incredibly positive. The other number I really want to focus on is the VSE number. As you can see here, big increase in VSEs year over year. It's not entirely apples to apples because of the pandemic and coming out of the sort of the new normal that we're living in now. But it does give you an idea about some of the efforts, I think, that have helped us to get that number up. We are now, as you all know, offering our VSEs 24/7. We had 36 overnight VSEs at Encore last year. We had 74 that we conducted remotely, and 20 of them were initiated by live chat. So those efforts to sort of really evolve our VSE program have yielded, I think, very positive results. Next slide, and I'm happy to answer any questions about specifics, but I'm trying to be sensitive to the time and really point out the highlights. If you look at MGM again, fantastic numbers across the board, literally over double the number of demonstrations year over year, double the number of exchanges year over the year. I don't think you could ask for much more. And then VSE is not as high up as EBH when you're looking at percentage wise, but still a significant bump. 13 VSEs were conducted remotely, 6 by live chat. The EBH's numbers on remote VSEs are going to be higher because in the beginning, mostly EBH was running them. Now all properties are doing remote VSEs. And the other reason is because EBH is the one casino that's open 24 hours. I'm not going to talk about Play My Way. As I said, Amy will talk about that. Next slide. And then lastly, Plainridge Park Casino, fantastic numbers again. You look at demonstrations, double from last year. You look at exchanges, a nice little bump there. And then if you look at the VSEs, also up and a little bit more significantly here. 9 were initiated by remotely, and 9 came in through live chat. So really, I think outstanding numbers across all properties in terms of our efforts year over year, and happy to share that with you today. Amy, next slide.
All right, so first and foremost, I'm not muted, so I've already won today, but I got through that without having to hit a button. So fantastic.
Yes.
As always, thank you for letting me share today. It's always a pleasure to be with you guys. A few Play My Way updates. So at MGM Springfield, we're a little over 3 months in. So we're still the baby in the group. I just got some numbers about an hour ago from Sandra in slots. As of about an hour ago, we have 2,371 active enrollees. And to me, the greater thing is only 139 folks have unenrolled. So that's under 6%. So not only are people signing up, but they're sticking with it. We've had folks come over, ask questions, change their budgets, maybe, look into things, but people are generally sticking with this, as well as sticking with, taking advantage of that food credit. So that's something that I'm very proud of. We're going to continue with this. And again, it's something that we've got a lot of praise over. A lot of folks, more folks than I would have thought, are coming over and saying, this is great. Like, this is great that you have this. So we're gonna, carry the torch and keep going. We've definitely been in talks with Encore about what we've done leading up to Play My Way and what we're doing. So hopefully that'll be a successful rollout as well. And just a hands, little clapping for Plainridge Park. Some info I got this morning. So in just over 6 years, 24,500 enrollees. That's something that we love to see at MGM because, that's something that we're going to want to emulate. So over a long period of time, they've been able to sustain this with the cooperation and collaboration of Plainridge Park and their leadership. And we hope to do the same thing at MGM. I mean, I think since this came out in 2016, I was a part of that. This is a great program and people really are taking advantage of this. So we're going to keep going. Next slide. All right, game sense in action. So what are we up to? We're always up to something. There's always something going on. And I know this little brain and everybody else's. So one of the new activities that we are running right now at MGM It's actually word scramble, not Wordle. Does everybody know what Wordle is? Come on, you know you do and you love it. Everybody knows what Wordle is. So what I wanted, again, we don't want to reinvent the wheel here, the messaging, the stuff we want to get out, but we do want to think of new and creative ways to get it out because we don't want anything to get stale. So I came up with basically a word scramble game that we put on our monitor. This is all very simple. It involves the same game sense messaging, but I've also incorporated LRGG and positive play messaging in because as we get that new research, we want to incorporate it in and we always will. And this has been, this is one of those things I did kind of off cuff and was just like, let's see what happens. This has been remarkably successful. People are eating this up. I'm so pleased. They, a lot of times we'll ask people one question, maybe two, and they're ready to move on. People want to play this whole game, and right now I've got about 20 questions on there that deal with RG. And I'm hoping by RGEM month, we will, I'll get a bunch more and we'll incorporate it into that. So that's what we got going on in MGM right now. I was lucky enough in June to take part in the Pride Parade, the first inaugural Pride Parade in Springfield, and got to join the MGM team there. You see the picture there. So I was so happy to, be invited to join them and be a part of that. Obviously, that is something very personal to me, and it was very exciting to see Chris Kelly and a lot of the leadership at MGM being involved with that. As you all probably know, our center is moving, only about 30 yards down the road, but we are moving. So if anybody wants to help move stuff, pizza and beer is on me. We are moving. Actually, they currently just took off our first door in the closet today, so they're starting to move some things over. I got a little brief view of that this morning. They took me through, and this coming Friday, we have a larger contingency coming over, including Long and Mark and Marlene, I believe, and Chelsea. So we'll get a look at that and be able to put our feedback in. MGM's been fabulous about getting our feedback and, seeing how we want things so we can get this done right. So that's fantastic. Should be moving sometime in August, give or take. I mean, obviously, depending on how things go, but that's the plan. We are continuing our augmented reality at the centers. We're weaving in and out with other activities depending on what's going on. It's one of those things where especially the younger folks are definitely interested in this and the technology and how it works. Sometimes the older folks might think it's more of a game and they're a little bit confused, but this has definitely been something that if people, latch onto it, we can really get into a nice discussion about some of the house edges on the more common games, blackjack, roulette, and slots, and just be able to explain to folks how this works. And at the end, the messaging is always come play what you enjoy, have fun, set a budget, and just understand that, there are house edges to these games. EBH, I think it was Chris at EBH came out with a fabulous, wouldn't call it a game. It's almost like we have a virtual swag wheel that we let people spin at MGM, and whatever they stop on, they get a prize, whether it's a pen or a lunchbox or whatever we're giving away. This is kind of a spin on that, but a really, really creative, cool one in which he has 9 horses, and you pick a horse 1 through 9, whichever one you think is going to win the race. Do you guys remember the carnivals when you were younger with the squirt guns and the horses moved across and you had to be the winner to get the prize? They had it with clowns too. It's kind of the same thing. You get to actually hear the music and see the horses move across the screen. And then we have our 3 winners, our winner or place. If your horse places, you get a prize. So it's kind of showing the randomness, just like the swag wheel does, but in a much more kind of creative and fun way where people kind of get jazzed up and see the horses move. It's very, very cool. If you haven't seen it, I would definitely find a way to check that out. We have also collaborated with Suffolk Downs and Raynham, which is fantastic. We have had our senior GSAs, Lynn Ho and Ken Averill, go over there and give presentations on RG and Game Sense to staff. They were very into it. They were excited to have it. And I do believe that those collaborations are planning on continuing. So just the fact that we've gotten out into those atmospheres, into the racing atmospheres and made connections with those folks is fantastic. Next. My favorite part, the Game Sense Excellence Awards. So we do this every quarter, as you know, and the idea is to recognize casino employees at all 3 properties that, embody the GameSense messaging, that embrace responsible gambling, that collaborate and work well with us. So at EBH this quarter, excuse me, we have Rose Pulima, who's a table games dealer, who, at one point had different players at her tables that were saying, they were frustrated, they never walked away with money. And because she really connected with the GameSense staff and understands the program, she was able to speak to them a little bit about this. And then when GameSense came over, she felt very comfortable talking with us about her frustrations after she had spoken with the dealer. So that connection there. Anna Lee from planning apparently was instrumental in helping out with the new storage for GameSense. She was always available, updated everything, helped with the designing and the shelves. She was always in constant communication with our leaders over there at EBH, and really helped create a very nice space for us so that we can do our jobs the way we want to and have what we need. And we have Alvin Gonzalez in security, who is always going above and beyond to direct folks to GameSense. He really understands our program and our staff, and really is very good at making that first, initial interaction and talking to folks about us and setting the stage for, us to be able to talk with people. He has also helped out when we have not had a Spanish-speaking GameSense officer on duty at the time by translating. So fantastic work from the EBH folks. Here at MGM, Brad Larson, he's a dinosaur. I've known him forever from back at Foxwoods, table games guy, who really was one of those guys, that it took a little bit for him to get into GameSense because he comes from the old school, and now he is just the biggest ambassador of this. He knows what we do. He's always asking us for updates. What are you guys into? He knows everything about Play My Way, even though he's in table games, because that certainly can carry over. So just always on our side and wanting to understand what we do so he can share with players. We have Cesar Torres, who's a table games pit manager, who actually a couple of weeks ago very kindly and graciously and with respect walked over a player who I then spent about an hour with to do a voluntary self-exclusion. He's been with me from the beginning before we even opened doing GameSense trainings. So he's always embraced us and continues to do so. And we have Sandra Torres in slots, who was instrumental in training for Play My Way and rolling it out. I can call her on a dime. I did it this morning and said, hey, give me some numbers so I can look cool at the meeting. And she had them out to me in 5 minutes. Always kind, always respectful, always willing, to make sure we have what we need. And I'm very grateful. At Plainridge Park, we have Jeff Levitt in security. He's been a great employee at PPC. He's super helpful when people need any help at the machines for any reason at all. He's always asking about what GameSense does and making sure he's up to date on anything we're into. And he always wants to know about our job and how we approach patrons so he can do it better. We have Fonda Honeycutt in food and beverage, who's an energetic and amazing beverage server with crazy energy. The customer service is just out of this world. She's got a very close connection with the patrons and has come to GameSense multiple times when she sees anything that is worrisome, to make sure that we're aware that somebody might be struggling and just giving us the heads up so that we might be able to make a connection with the patron. And we have Robert Burdett of security. He's again always asking how he can better engage with patrons. That fits into the GameSense messaging, and he will always refer and get folks to us when in need. And he's definitely an important liaison in between, the patrons and us. And we appreciate these folks more than you could ever imagine. And Madam Chair, just so you know, if you don't already, in a world that really could use some ups and some kindness right now, I want you to understand just how much your personal note means to these folks. I mean, when I tell you I have had people literally have a tear come down and say, this is amazing, I'm going to put this on my resume. I can't believe somebody of that status is recognizing me. So again, in a world where we're looking for anything to kind of give us a smile, I just want you to understand just how much this means to these folks and just how much it means to us at GameSense that you can take the time to do that. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Amy.
Hi, all. My name's Phil, and good morning or almost afternoon, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I have a 4-minute video to show you, and then maybe a 30-second update on live chat if I have time. We like to use personal stories for advocacy, to educate the public, generate awareness, and to reduce stigma. And recently, we assembled what we call a whiteboard video, telling Jane's story. Now, Jane is an individual that's very close to the council, does some wonderful work. We're not using their real name to protect their identity, but we're very grateful that they're willing to share the story, and we hope to use more graphics and video like this in the future. So without further ado, I will play.
Turning 40, I had the big 3. Love who you're with, love where you live, and love what you do. I'd been sober for a few years at that point. My father was a recovering alcoholic, and I knew that was in my DNA. But here's the thing. I hadn't gone into recovery. I went to 3 Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, and I was done. I never unpacked why I drank so much or smoked so many cigarettes. I never considered why more was never enough for me. Unfortunately, I soon found a different high through slot machines. I started playing at a casino during a conference for work, and I won. I got the thrill into my system right away. Addiction is a progressive disease, no matter if it's gambling, smoking, or anything else. Because I didn't seek recovery for drinking, my gambling started at a higher level, which became dangerous. I started gambling full out. After 6 months of intense gambling, I was playing $100 slots. I went through all the money I could find, my home equity loan, credit cards. I maxed out everything. When you're struggling with problematic gambling, you don't care about anything or anybody. All I wanted to do was sit at the machine and escape whatever worries I had. Money was the drug, and gambling was how I got high. I did the unthinkable to get more money, even stealing from my employer, whom I loved. When I got caught, things went downhill from there. I was fired and ultimately sentenced to prison time. The hardest part was telling my family. They had no idea. The shame, the embarrassment, the guilt all set in. I had betrayed them. I started going to AA meetings again, but couldn't face Gamblers Anonymous yet. When I finally did go to GA, I came in tears. I was a complete wreck, but the folks there got me. They offered me understanding, unconditional love, and support. I learned that while I had a disease, I wasn't crazy. There was hope. I ended up serving 20 months in prison. That was hell, but I got through it. I tried to stay positive and draw on the takeaways from the GA meetings. I had a lot of time to reflect, too. I realized that the only way to start gaining back self-respect and anyone else's was an honest effort at recovery. That's when I started taking things seriously. Upon my release, my history of problem gambling and embezzlement followed me, creating new challenges. I was incredibly fortunate to find housing and a new job. Today, I use my past as a focusing point. You remember the pain and what you did because that helps you remain in the present. With relationships, some hurt may always be there. I still am digging out from financial issues. From the day I got fired until this is resolved, it'll be about 10 years if I'm fortunate. I believe the best way to move forward is to live with honesty, integrity, accept responsibility, make amends, and pay it forward. I still go to weekly GA meetings, seeing people like me who have embezzled, served time, and hurt loved ones, but are back on their feet continues to ground and motivate me. My work involves working with those struggling with problematic gambling. I've seen that for someone to go into true recovery from any addiction, they have to do it for themselves. That's the intrinsic motivation when you're tested and triggered. So, if you or a loved one is struggling with gambling, focus on the recovery, not just stopping the behavior. Do the follow through and find resources, whether that's counseling, group work, a 12-step program, a faith-based program, reading books, etc. There are many pathways to recovery, as long as it's healthy and works for you. Break your recovery journey into tiny steps. Find support, maintain a positive attitude, and take things one day, 1 hour at a time.
So there you have it. And we look forward to doing similar videos that fall under, problem gambling and responsible gambling. We feel like that medium is a real effective way to reach people. And really quickly, because I know we're short for time, wanted to give you an update on live chat. In this fourth quarter, we had 94 live chats. 49 were related to voluntary self-exclusion. About 6 we would categorize as problem gambling, and 39 were just, general info, rules of the game, when's the casino open till, questions like that. Previously, over the fiscal year, we've had 329 live chats. 148 were VSE related, 51 would be categorized as problem gambling, and 230 would be general info. So this continues to be a success and pick up on pace month to month. So without further ado, I'd like to kick it over to Marlene Warner.
Thanks, Phil. I'm actually going to, Phil, have you skip this slide and just go to the next one, please, for the sake of time. Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity. And one of the things I want to say is thank you for the opportunity to come to you quarterly. We all really enjoy doing this. And so that last slide, it was a review of where we've been. We've had the opportunity to come and share that with you. So let's just talk about where we're going in these last few moments we have. So Responsible Gambling Education Week has turned to a month. So all of September, we will be doing efforts primarily patron facing in collaboration with the MGC, of course, but also with the casino licensees. The Gift Responsibly campaign, which used to be the holiday campaign, is something that is actually now year round, and talking to folks about lottery products and making sure that folks know they're not appropriate for children and understanding when and where they are appropriate. Obviously, given the casinos are lottery agents, it's something that we like to talk to the patrons about. Typical things, Problem Gambling Awareness Month. Play My Way. I mean, Amy did a really nice job talking about the numbers and how they've been growing, and we hope to continue to see how we can incite excitement and understanding and education around that at all 3 properties. But certainly, with the rollout of Play My Way in September at EVH. We have a big evaluation coming up, or actually, I should say, kind of underway. And I know Mark and Log have been reporting to all of you about that. We don't know what will hold in terms of sports betting, but we're trying to be as prepared as we can with the information we have. And so spending a lot of time training staff, thinking about exercises and activities, doing all of that. Urge surfing is something I think we've talked a little bit more about. One of the things we're trying to do is figure out how to get that comfortable for our game sense advisors. And then a lot of these other things, activities, celebrations, reports, newsletters, trainings, very typical, but things that are so key and important to the success of our team. Our team has also been going out on buses and talking with patrons, but also just kind of reading the room and seeing what folks need in terms of education before they get on the bus, while they're on the bus, when they get off the bus, so we can better serve patrons in that sense. And then we're always trying to keep our team well developed in terms of content. Mental health first aid has been a big success this year, something Amy kicked off and Aisha has continued. But certainly sports gambling and other areas we've been trying to develop there. Next slide, please. I would be remiss to not talk about this big conference that we have. As reported yesterday afternoon at 2 o'clock, they had 625 people registered. We are now hitting, I think, fire code capacity at the Westin Seaport. That's good and bad news, as you might imagine. So we are very excited about that. Here's a long list of all the ways that our staff, the Gaming Commission staff, and all of our key stakeholders in Massachusetts are going to be involved. There was a pre-conference that was done digitally online in June that went very well, where Phil and Odessa were able to present around foundations in gaming disorder. And then Phil and Ray did a very successful and kind of engaging presentation on remote voluntary self-exclusion. A lot of folks are asking us a lot of questions about that, wanting to know how they could do something similar in their jurisdictions and states. And then, like I said, that long list really shows the breadth and depth of knowledge and activity here in Massachusetts, and that we're really proud to display on a national stage. So with that, I am going to wrap it up and say thank you to all of the commissioners and see if there's any questions for myself or any of the terrific team members I have here with me today.
Well, you are remarkably on time, and it was such an engaging presentation. So thank you. I want to thank each of you for the contribution you made. Each brings such a important perspective. Commissioners, what questions do you have for Marlene and team?
I don't have any questions, but I would like to say I'm going to look forward to what we're going to be doing in FY23. There's been a lot of talk and a lot of collaborations with other agencies in the Commonwealth that I think we're going to try and hook up with you folks and have bigger partnerships, and we are already doing. I'm looking forward to those conversations and programs and things that we can do for people with problem gaming. So great job, a great report as always, but even better, I think things are going to be bigger and better in FY23.
Commissioner O'Brien, Commissioner Skinner. Commissioner Skinner.
Just echoing Commissioner Hill's sentiments, great presentation. Really pleased with the increase in the numbers for your interactions. I share your excitement about that. Just the specific question I have about the charts on the interactions. So Encore, you have a subcategory for VSCs overnight that doesn't appear on the other licensee charts. Can you just kind of speak to that? Generally, what's that about?
The only center that's open overnight is Encore. We close at 1 a.m. and reopen at 9 a.m. at both PPC and MGM. And we started that actually right after the pandemic. It was a need that our staff saw. And now the fact that we're doing it, we're seeing really good results, and there's definitely a need during those hours. So it's great. Now what can happen is, even though we're not open 24 hours at PPC or MGM, we can do those VSCs remotely. So it's because Encore is always staffed.
Thank you. The other question I had, actually, it's more of just a comment. I really enjoyed the video. Very impactful. It's a great, story, and it really gets the message out nicely that there is hope and there is help available to individuals who are struggling. So looking forward to seeing more of that. Thank you.
Commissioner O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As usual, this is one of the better topics you see on the agenda, because it's always makes you feel pretty good about what we're doing. The stats are pretty impressive, and I don't want to diminish at all when I ask this question, but was there a sense of the people that unenrolled from why they were doing it? Like, did you see a trend? Do you learn anything from looking at that group that unenrolled?
You want me to go here?
Yeah, go ahead, Aim.
Okay, so unfortunately, we don't always do the unenrollment. So they do have a drop down in which they have to choose one reason. I don't have that data. From the folks that we have that have come to the center to unenroll, most of them want the anonymity. They don't, just don't want to be tracked. A lot of folks we've had come and adjust their budgets, which is they stay in the program. They've just decided, okay, I did something unrealistic here. Can we do this? But as far as why they're unenrolling, the most that we've gotten from the center is two things. Either I just want to play anonymously, or I don't need this, have been the two things. But I would love to see I'm not sure how we do this, or if we can, to see what that data is when they do it on the machine, what their reasoning is.
Actually, if I could chime in on that, we actually have an evaluation currently underway of the Play My Way program at MGM. done with a third party, Carleton University, led by Dr. Michael Wall, funded by the International Center for Responsible Gaming. I think it's a really important question, Commissioner O'Brien, and just in terms of where are we now and how can we improve this program going forward, especially as we seek to expand it. So we will have more information. We will that will be driven by that evidence.
All right, great. Thank you. Thanks for everything you do. Again, it's always great to hear from you guys.
Just I have just a couple, a comment and a follow-up. Amy, wanted to make sure I understood. You said it was a first with respect to Pride Month and the Pride Parade. Can you just remind us what the first was? The first parade or the first time MGM was present in the parade?
No, so the parade on June 4th in Springfield was the first ever Pride Parade to take place in the city of Springfield.
My gracious, that
right.
is good news, huh?
So it was pretty exciting, and MGM allowed me to join their little group there, and it was brought a little bit of a tear to my eye. I'm not going to lie, being part of the first one and being with an operator that is definitely inclusive and wanted me to was glad that I was a part of it. It was fantastic.
Well, you know what? That's exciting. So that's just really an interesting fact. I'm glad I got the clarification. That's what I thought I heard, Amy, and I was kind of surprised. And thank you for pointing out that Chris Kelly was right there along with you all. I know how much he supports inclusion, and of course, it's wonderful for you to be part of that effort. So really, really nice celebration. And then the only other question I had, no, it's more a comment. I just want to remind all of us that Massachusetts really is a leader in this space, and it's a credit to, of course, the lawmakers that had the vision that they had 10 years ago in recognizing the import of responsible gaming. We know right now these issues are being wrestled with by the legislators 10 years later. No doubt thoughtfully, but we're able to shine much because of Mark's leadership and Long's great work. But we have a key and important partner in all of you at the council, Marlene, with your leadership. And of course, the leadership extends beyond GameSense, and we know that. We know that you're making it better for all those who are participating in gambling in Massachusetts. So we thank you for your leadership.
Thank
And
you,
Amy,
Chairwoman.
thank you, Amy. It's great to see you, and thank you too, Phil, for showing the video. Like Commissioner Skinner, it really the story is compelling, but I think the way it's done just really keeps you focused. So well done. Thanks, everyone. Anything else with these folks? We appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. All right, then we're moving on to item number 7. I see Heather Hall there and Loretta Lilios, our 2 alliterations. And we're going to go now to the civil penalties and fine process. And in our packets, we have both the original memo that was presented and then the policy that was attached at that meeting earlier. And thank you for the 1-pager. It really makes a difference. You want to get started, Heather, as I pull it up?
Sure, thank you. I also just want to say it's hard to follow the GameSense team. They do such an excellent job. So I just want to give a little shout out to them.
Heather, that's a fair comment.
Yeah,
but,
it is.
But you do great too.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, Chair and Commissioners, thank you. As you know, we're here today to discuss the IEB's draft policy regarding the assessment of civil administrative penalties, which is at page 80 of your packets. And just as a reminder, at the end of April, as the Chair noted, We discussed the IUB's memorandum regarding the process for the assessment of civil administrative penalties, and essentially how the IUB addresses non-compliance matters more broadly. And that particular memorandum is at 69 of the packet. So just by way of recapping, with respect to the memorandum, we reviewed and discussed at the meeting that we had previously the statutory and regulatory framework that the IEB follows when we're addressing non-compliance issues. We talked about how the IEB becomes aware of non-compliance issues and the different sources of information that we rely on. The requirement under 23K section 36 that we provide fair notice before assessing a fine, except in very limited circumstances. And we also discussed that the overall objective of the IEB's monitoring and enforcement function is compliance. We went through the different escalating enforcement measures with the commissioners, which started with verbal notification by gaming agents with a follow-up email, issuance of non-compliance forms or NCFs that are issued by the Gaming Agents Division. We also discussed notices of non-compliance that are issued by the Chief Enforcement Counsel's office. And then finally, the assessment of civil administrative penalties. When we discussed how the IEB reaches the appropriate dollar amounts when it assesses a fine, we noted that it's an intensively fact-specific inquiry. And there are several factors that the IEB considers, including the level of seriousness of the non-compliance, the potential impact on the integrity of gaming and public safety, the number and degree of prior similar instances of non-compliance, opportunities that the licensee or registrant had to rectify the non-compliance and if they failed to do so, and any mitigating information. And I think after we discussed the IEB's memorandum, we then briefly talked about the IEB's draft policy regarding its assessment of civil administrative penalties. And one of the issues that came up in that discussion was the consideration of prior fines issued for similar non-compliance and the dollar amounts and any circumstances that may warrant a larger or smaller amount for a subsequent fine. And we did adjust the policy to reflect that consideration, and that has been redlined for ease of reference for the commissioners. And by way of example, with respect to a circumstance where the IEB issued a fine and then subsequently later on issued a fine that was for a lesser amount, we had in May of 2019, the IEB issued a fine to a licensee for $100,000 for allowing underage individuals on the casino floor. That fine was issued to address what the IEB determined was essentially a systematic problem of continued non-compliance over a period of approximately 8 months. After that, the IEB subsequently issued a fine for similar non-compliance to the same licensee about 2 years later in March of 2021. But the amount of the fine was $18,000 in that circumstance, which was obviously significantly lower than the 2019 fine. And if I recall correctly, one of the commissioners, and I think it was Commissioner O'Brien, had asked about that circumstance. And so by way of follow-up to that question, the subsequent fine was less in amount for a few reasons. First of all, there were far fewer instances in the 2021 assessment. And I think it was essentially 3 instances that were addressed in 2021 versus approximately 50 leading up to, over the course of several months, leading up to the fine that was assessed in 2019. And the licensee in 2021 had taken steps to address the issue of underage persons accessing the gaming floor. They implemented tips training for all personnel. They instituted pre-shift meetings, reiterating company policy about verifying age. They also installed a handrail barrier in high traffic areas. And there were also some issues in that particular time frame that were related to underage individuals wearing masks. I think that contributed to the non-compliance. So that's just kind of a follow-up to what I think was Commissioner O'Brien's question and the kind of reasoning behind why we adjusted the policy to reflect that there may be certain circumstances, depending on a lot of different factors, where the IEB might issue a fine and then subsequently issue a fine that's less in an amount. And I note that, we continue to see these issues with underage persons accessing the gaming floor. We will continue to work through these issues with the licensees and take appropriate enforcement actions, keeping in mind that our overall goal is always compliance. So with respect to the IEB's draft policy that's in your packets today, we welcome any feedback that the commissioners might have and are here to answer questions. I don't know if we actually need a vote or can just go on consensus, but I'll defer to you all as to how you'd like to approach it.
I think we are planning on a formal adoption of this as a policy, unless we choose otherwise. Commissioners, questions for Heather and Loretta? Commissioner O'Brien, are you leaning in? No. I'll go ahead with a couple. I have a couple suggested edits. Commissioner Skinner, did you want to move first? On
no, I wanted to just clarify that the inquiry about the repeat fines was mine, and I am satisfied with the additional language that you included in the policy. So thank you, Heather.
That's great. Thank you, Commissioner Skinner, and apologies for my misremembering that.
No worries.
Duly noted for the minutes. Commissioner Hill, do you have any questions before I give a couple? Okay, these are just one. I'm looking at page 81 of the packet. So it's the second bullet.
Okay.
The second complete bullet. So notice of intent.
Sure.
At the conclusion, you say, ultimately, this communication may lead to the IEB and the licensee reaching an agreement as to the amount of the civil administration penalty. So I just wanted to clarify, because I remember I was brand new when the largest one, the $100,000 fine was issued. And I remember going, whoa, I do not know anything about this process. So as it works out, IEB, if I'm to be clear, correct me, right? Has a give and take with the licensee about where they are with respect to the non-compliance with respect to the issuance of a fine. And you learn from each other. It's a give and take, and you may find some mitigating factors that reduce the amount that you might be suggesting. And then you come to an amount, and it's likely that they agree because it is a negotiation. However, I think it's really important for our licensees to know that always they have the option of an appeal to the commission.
Yes, absolutely, Chair. That's completely true. And I would say, just so a little bit more information with respect to the process, before the IEB would issue a civil administrative penalty, we would issue a document that's referred to as a notice of intent. And in that notice, we set forth what we are planning to do with respect to the fine. And that definitely provides the licensee or registrant with information that they have the right to appeal and the time frame, et cetera. And that is the document that, and there certainly can be conversations and have been conversations prior to the issuance of that type of document. But that often will spur, and I'd say often, relatively speaking, because we haven't issued very many fines, but that spurs conversation with the licensee or registrant. And then it's at that point that there may be an agreement. But absolutely, you're right. And, they do have a right of appeal. And we make every effort, and we do inform them of that in writing, and that in the notice of intent, which is the document that precedes the actual document that has the ultimate assessment in it. And Loretta, feel free to correct me if I'm missing anything here.
Thanks, Heather. And Chair, I think it's a statutory requirement that the licensee be informed of the review opportunities. But that's a good observation of yours, that the policy, although our practice includes that, the policy does not contain an explicit mention of that. And
I had wondered if I had missed it, to be frank, Loretta, so I didn't miss it. So what if we just added it right
Definitely.
after that sentence, Loretta and Heather? I didn't mean to cut you off, Loretta, but maybe if we even add at any point or any juncture, right? Or is there a certain exhaustion? Do you have to offer an amount and then reject it? Or at any stage, could they say, we just would like to go to the commission?
We put an amount out there and we basically asked, do we have all the facts right? Is there anything that you'd like to add to challenge the facts, to add more context to this, or give us mitigating information? And that's a good practice. Our case law indicates that that's a good practice in the event that there ends up with an appeal to the commission. If the discourse leads to new information for us that, leads to negotiating the amount down, there is a waiver. If they agree to that, they waive their ability to appeal. Once the assessment is locked in, if it's not agreed to, there is a 21-day statutory time frame for appeal.
I'm trying to keep up. Admittedly, I'm a little bit behind. So I guess, simply put, the day that they learned from the notice of intent that Heather explains that they received, that's after already getting the first notice of non-compliance. They get that, things don't go well, and you get to that point where now there's a notice of intent to impose the fine. Is there any point, at any point in the process from then on, could they file an appeal, or do they have to exhaust some part of an administrative remedy with you, an administrative action with you first? Or at any stage, can they just say, you know what, we're not even sure we should be getting fined. We just want to go to the commission?
Sure. Once they get the assessment, they have the right to the review to the commission.
So the assessment as opposed to the notice of intent to assess?
Correct.
And just a quick FYI on that too, Loretta's absolutely right. If it's a licensee, they go to the commission, but if it's a registrant, it would go to a hearing officer in the first instance.
Good point.
Yeah,
good point.
Just an FYI on that. But Chair, I think you make a great point that we could certainly add that to the policy, the part about notifying of the, the time frame.
I think it's important. Commissioners, I don't know how you feel, but I do think that a appellate right is important to include in the policy, just to make sure that licensees are aware. Well, and also to make sure our people, whoever's implementing this, know that that's a right too.
That's
so
fine.
that was, is that good? And so I know we want to vote on this today, so we can think about that language. The second one I wanted to add at the very end of Loretta and Heather, the last bullet on page 81, 82. I don't know if Carrie is still on, but she might have some language for us too. You say that and this is absolutely true, the IEB is mindful to do so at a time and a manner that will preserve the commission's impartiality, because we have to think about adjudicatory bias, where the licensee or registrant may exercise its right to an adjudicatory hearing. The next line, the IEB also is mindful to do so in a manner that will preserve the confidentiality of sensitive information, if any. Can we add a clause, something like in accordance with public records law and open meeting law and any other applicable laws, or something to that effect? Because the issue around what's confidential or sensitive may mean something to our licensees that we can't really uphold under the legal structure.
Yeah,
that's great. Thank you.
So on the other one, so that one was a little bit easier. I parked my brain on the other one. Carrie, are you okay with that kind of language?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Is there anything you'd want to add?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but I'm happy to work with Loretta and Heather on just the specific language to add there.
Yeah, Okay, and then on the other one, it could just be, it could either be at separate point or just add it to the notice of intent to just at the end. Unless Nikisha, Anine, or Brad, you have suggestions, but at, any juncture, any point in time, post whatever, the licensee or has the ability to appeal to the commission and then the registrant to the hearing officer if you want to get that detailed, or just somehow triggering appellate rights to the next stage. Commissioner Skinner, Commissioner O'Brien, Commissioner Hill, do you have suggestions on that? Or do you debate it, the need for it?
What kind of, is that reflected in any sort of penalty or fine that's imposed? Is that just notice included in that?
Heather says it's in the notice of intent that goes
But in
out.
terms of the actual disposition, if there is something, is it in that?
It would be, Commissioner. We actually, with the small number of fines that we've already issued to date, they have all been agreed. But it would be.
So it would be in the final disposition also.
Correct.
And my point is, I guess my point, Eileen, is that I think it might be important to remind the licensees that they do have that right of appeal early on in the process too. Once they do sign up, they do waive that right of appeal, right?
Well, right.
And Heather,
yeah, so I think, Chair, what you're suggesting is that in the first notice of intent on the fine, that we set out what the appellate right is.
Well, actually, we do that, and I think maybe we just need to add that to the policy that we do. Right. That's definitely done in the notice of intent. And then if they agree, then we're not going to say it again because they're waiving it if they're agreeing to it in the final assessment, if that makes any sense.
And we do say, and it's a statutory requirement in the agreed disposition, we do alert them in writing that they are waiving their right to a hearing by agreeing. So we do include it. We do. Before they sign it, they read that again.
Well, I would be happy to at least have the policy reflect that there is a further appellate right. And then maybe it is, when you say that they may lead to the IB and the licensee reaching agreement to the amount of the civil administrative penalty, you might want to add, with that comes a waiver of the right to appeal. That, and up until that time, that juncture, the licensee has the right to a administrative appeal to the full commission. Am I reading it right? I think that's right. Right?
Yes.
Okay. So I muddied the water here. I'm sorry.
Okay, it's helpful.
No.
We appreciate the feedback.
Commissioner Skinner, what do you think?
No objection, Chair, to the language you're suggesting be added.
Okay. Commissioner O'Brien?
It's fine. It sounds like it's in there by practice. I don't mind at all if it's incorporated in the policy.
Yeah. And Commissioner Hill? Oh, thumbs up. We can do.
I'm fine with what you suggested. No problem here. Oh God, I don't even know how to do that. It's under reactions.
Uh-huh.
There we are.
We're a little bit late on the drawing board on that, Thanks. Okay, we got the thumbs up, and then we have the red line addition. Any other suggestions? Or we talked a lot about the last time that there's not a specific dollar amount, and I think I was very appreciative of going over that it's so fact-based at this juncture. It probably makes sense to not try to have any minimums or maximums, but we can revisit this over time as need be. So that's under the bullets on that crossover between 81 and 82. All right. So if we, are we comfortable having Heather and Loretta and Carrie as needed, make the changes reflected in the discussion and still go ahead and vote?
Yes.
Thanks. Okay, then I'll take a motion, unless there's any further questions for HH and LL. Okay, take a motion.
I'm happy to move.
Thanks, Commissioner.
I move that the commission approve the IEB's process and policy for assessment of civil administrative penalties, both as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today.
Second.
Excellent. Further discussion? Commissioner O'Brien?
Aye.
Commissioner Hill?
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner?
Aye.
And I vote yes, 4-0. Well done. Well done. Thank you so much. And again, appreciate the one pager that set the stage for our discussion today. Very helpful. All right, then we have under Commissioner updates, we have a couple of points, and I have to say, Commissioner O'Brien, with my being out for medical stuff last week and you being on vacation, I did send an inquiry to the independent monitor, but I realized unless she's gotten back to us in real time, she did.
Yeah, she just responded not too long ago.
Have you been able to digest it? Oh, she's.
It's not. I mean, it's not lengthy, but it's also not short. If you'd like, I can read just the substance.
Yeah, I have it now in front of me. I think what we should do is just set the stage for the inquiry, right? Commissioner O'Brien, do you want to do that?
So the way the contract with the independent monitor is set up, Brad, I think you were here the last time. When they have estimates for the contract cost for each year. And if they're going to go greater than a certain percentage over that estimated budget, they have to come back to us and explain why it is that they're going over. It's not necessarily seeking permission so much as alerting us to the fact that the circumstances changed such that the hours and monies they're billing for the services are exceeded what they estimated.
I mean, if you scroll down a little bit, that includes Derek's nice background and it tells what the amount is.
Right. So Derek very helpfully sent us what the actual dollar amounts were. We have some invoices that are outstanding. So the chair and I had a conversation with Alejandra a couple of weeks ago, where we alerted them to the fact that they needed to once again delineate why it is that the numbers were off. But just so we're on the record with the full commission, believe it's if they exceed by greater than 15% in the fiscal year, which would be July 21 through through June of 22, that was it as of June 27th.
Yeah.
The law firm had billed 1.325912 for services running through April 30th of 2022, which was about $200,001 above their revised estimate that they had given us earlier in the year. And obviously we had the invoices still forthcoming for the last couple months of that fiscal year.
Can I just insert this, Eileen? In February of this year, she did provide us notice that the estimated annual budget under the original RFP of $775,000 would be likely to be exceeded by that 15% for that period of July 2021 to July 2022. So she did ask then, or say the notice would be $1,125,000. And now, we got notice of that. And then when we started getting those invoices, that's when we wondered if it was exceeding again the 15%, right, of that adjusted number. which is what you just pointed out, it had. So now, in today's email, the reason for the cost exceeding the revised estimate are as follows. Do you want to go over that?
Certainly. So Alejandra submitted that 3 primary reasons for the overage. The first being that prior to the submission of the last report to the commission, that the company, when had submitted a position statement to the monitoring team questioning the basis of certain observations and conclusions that have been drawn in the report, which required the team to review certain facts again and then hold additional and previously unplanned meetings with the company. Second, that the company had been delayed in submitting certain materials to the team, but then was able to submit them to the team prior to final submission of the report. The new materials were submitted after significant drafting had been completed and required redrafting of the relevant sections. And lastly, there was, certain sensitivity in some of the observations that were mentioned in the report. And then there was silent briefings obviously given to us prior to the public presentation, which obviously required the team to come up with sort of a second presentation to us and then the time for the actual presentation. So that is the sum and substance of the reasons why they're once again facing this overage. And then she does in fact attach the May invoice and give the ballpark of June. So the May invoice being about $11,000 and the anticipated soon to be finalized June invoice being about $18,700.
But what's outstanding right now, Eileen, is the overage that she's giving us notice of is 200, am I reading this right from Derek's notes, $200,912.39.
And I believe what she was intending to do also with that last paragraph was notify us of the last 2 invoices for this fiscal year.
Yeah,
which is the 11 and the 18.7.
So relatively small invoices. So that would be 200. Sorry for the in real time math, and we can push this over, but it's 200,000. So about 201,000, then another what? 18.
So almost 30, so 29.7.
Yeah, and one of the points to really pay attention to is she said that does not include the invoices from Cromwell. They're waiting for
Right.
I'm waiting for those too. So it could be anywhere from 30 to 50,000. Based
on top of the 200.
On top of the 200, correct.
Although that his firm usually hasn't billed as much of late, so I doubt the gap would be that significant. He's not been contributing to the billables quite as much.
I was just looking at her $11,000 one.
Yeah.
I mean the 18,000 one saying they're finalizing them. So that may go up too.
Right.
I was just given a gap so that we didn't have to come back again to discuss this. And another important part of it is the way the contract is written is they just have to notify us as long as they're not changing the work plan.
Right.
And
she
they have verified that they're not changing the work plan.
Right.
So they just have to notify us. With that said, we could still ask the independent monitor to come in to discuss billing. Certainly,
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. We can ask them to come in and then we can change, we can see we're in a bad timing now because it's the end of the year, but we could then come and say, well, we want to revise the work plan then. We want to drop off these few things, but we're at a point right now where the reports are written.
And that's what we've done in the past when this has happened, is it's more, Kathy and I have more frequent interactions with them about this, but the question of whether we as a body are comfortable with just the notice versus, like you said, Derek, then having a deeper dive and saying, well, we want to change the work plan. That's why it comes out in front of all 4 of us at this point.
Correct. So I'll let you guys discuss now. I just wanted to add those points.
So she did express her regrets at not being timely. Mm-hmm. So that's a lot to digest. The general principle here is that back when we chose through a competitive RFP, and it was Commissioner Hill and Commissioner Skinner, very competitive and thoroughly conducted, well-conducted RFP process. This group was chosen, and there is an outside amount, right, Todd, of what they can bill for, notwithstanding this, correct? They, so that, and they haven't reached that amount, correct?
Are you referring to the 15% on top of the projected
Well,
number?
the overall, when they bid on it, I think they bid on, I can't remember the amount. I think it's up to 5 million, was it?
Oh,
I don't think it's a hard cap as much as an estimate for the 5 years. Is that
yeah,
right?
I'd have to go back and look at that.
Is that right,
yeah,
Derek?
Yeah, that's correct, because it was a time and materials, and what they said is for the first 6 months, we estimate it to be this many hours, and then we extrapolate this amount, and then we anticipate the similar level of effort for future years as the 6 month time period. So that's basically what we had to put into the accounting system to carry it out from year to year. We have to put a commitment in for each year, but it is a time and materials rate. So it's more along the hourly rate than the 775,000 plus 15%. And in the first 6 months, we exceeded that first 775 too. So, you know, we've been having a lot of discussions behind the scenes about should we rebase it, but we never did a contract amendment to change it. So that's where we are.
And to be blunt, some of this comes about depending on how compliant and how quickly compliant the licensee has been. You know, and this has been a recurring theme as we go through. So we could, Derek, to your point, maybe revise for what would be the last couple of years potentially of this, or we could keep coming back if they continue to behave this way and or other reasons cause cost overruns.
Commissioner Skinner, Commissioner Hill, what are you thinking? I know this is a lot, but right now the overage, in February, before Commissioner Skinner was on board, they did give us the proper timely notice. This is an untimely notice, so we will mention that to the independent monitor. But now they are over the overage. So let's estimate 250,000, right? 230 to 250. And they've given 3 reasons that Commissioner O'Brien's noted, and it's in our email. At this stage, they are not operating outside of the work plan, so they don't have to do anything more, but we could ask for we could ask them to come in and explain what the work plan going forward, and concerns about costs, no concerns about costs, message to the licensee that we want to help them not have to pay for expanded costs. Anyway, the options are multiple. So Commissioner Hill, Commissioner Skinner, questions?
I saw Nikisha first wanted to speak before I make a comment.
I missed it. Sorry, Commissioner Skinner.
No, it's okay. And I was happy to defer to Brad, but I don't have a great grasp of, you know, the costs associated with the independent monitor and the budget and all that. Notwithstanding the untimely notice, I think the reasons provided seem justifiable. So I'm not going to, you know, try to poke holes in those. I mean, I'm not as close to this matter as either you, Eileen, or you, Kathy. So for this instance, I'm okay with just, you know, moving forward as you have always done relative to these matters.
Commissioner Hill?
So I'm always for having them come before us and updating us anytime. I think that's a good policy to have and to do on a regular basis. I think Commissioner O'Brien actually was as blunt as I was going to be in why these funds have gone up. and what I was thinking throughout the presentation that you both gave. This is happening because the licensee is not giving the information in a timely fashion. At least that's what I'm hearing. So I too don't have any issue right now with our independent monitor's budget, except against the untimely notice, but that's something that we can address with them. But it's being done, the excess amount of money is not because of the independent monitor itself. It's because of what they have to do in order to get the information out or a dialogue happening with the licensee. So with that said, I too have no issues with you two moving forward, but anytime we can bring the independent monitor in for updates is a good thing.
Okay, so the way that the process works is that they do send their, maybe I've mentioned this before, they send their invoices, I guess, usually directly to me as the contract manager, and then I send them on to Todd and Eileen for further review before we greenlight them for Derek and team. Derek is usually copied in those matters. And I think it was at a certain point in time that I just felt like maybe it was getting up to an amount that we needed to check here. So it sounds like with respect to these invoices, Derek, we have not paid those yet, right? Or we have not paid them, but we have not sent them for reimbursement from the licensee, correct?
So we have not sent I think it's the April one for
Right.
reimbursement, and we have not paid the April one because once we paid the March one, it exceeded the 1.125, and we didn't want to further compound that without this discussion first. So we haven't paid the April one yet.
Yeah, so am I hearing that everyone's comfortable with at least the notice we've been given now to go ahead and get that one taken care of? And then maybe it makes sense, Commissioner Hill, to look at their schedule and our schedules and see if we get them on a in an August meeting or a September meeting to just go over maybe their plan for what needs to be done in their independent monitor work based on the original work plan, and whether there needs to be any adjustments. They may say none. We may feel otherwise, but maybe it's a good discussion to have. And then talk about timing too. There is, I think in September, Eileen, it's year 3, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say we're just past the halfway point, really at the halfway point when you consider that the casinos were closed for COVID. So it's not a bad time to sit down and determine whether we do need a revision of the work plan or not.
Does that sound good? Maybe it ends up being a September meeting, depending on, of course, what August is looking like for us and for the independent monitor and the whole team there. All right, does that all make sense? That we give the green light to Derek?
Yes.
Okay, consensus, or do we need a vote? Oh, look at, I do. I've got this. We'll take this.
Brad.
Oh, Commissioner Skinner?
A little
Commissioner
laugh
Bryan?
at the end of our meeting.
I actually kind of like it. Okay. Legislative update. Commissioner Hill and Crystal and Mills and Todd. A lot going on.
So let me talk first about what happened over the past weekend with the National Council of Legislators from Gaming States. I opening statement Thursday night, but more importantly, Chairman Jerry Paracella had a welcoming on Friday morning. And in his remarks, he suggested he was very optimistic that they could get something done on sports betting by the end of the session. He didn't guarantee it by any stretch, but he was optimistic. So that was publicly said at that meeting. And so I think I can share that with all of you. And I also wanted just to let people know that the meeting was excellent. From what I can understand, it was the most highest rated conference of people coming from across the country to Boston for this conference. There was a lot of great information that was shared. We had a lot of our staff from the Mass Gaming Commission who attended all 4 days of that association's conference, and it couldn't have gone any better, in my opinion, but a lot of great information. And piggybacking on what we heard in Maine, there are a lot of concerns that we as a commission are going to have to address if and when we get sports betting. And my message in my remarks to them was that the legislators and the regulators have to work together. And we see that happening here in Mass, and I think the message was loud and clear that it needs to happen in other jurisdictions as well. That message was well received. In regards to Massachusetts legislative update, there was something that happened very quickly last week in the Massachusetts House, and I'm pulling it up right now, so you can just bear with me for a moment. So it had to do with a bill on veterans, House Bill 4978, which gave more benefits to not only veterans, but their family. And as part of that bill in Section 4, they would allow veteran organizations like VFW or AMVETS, things like that, to be able to offer up to 3 slot machines within their establishment. And of course, all the revenue would go to a nonprofit, dedicated nonprofit in their area. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I know in the past, this has been offered in the Senate and it was rejected. I don't know how they feel about it now, but if and when the veteran bill, House 4978, goes to a conference committee, this is now going to be in play. So we just need to be aware of it. I reached out to a couple of staff members just to, get a small sense of how we might be able to implement this should it come, and it would come before us, by the way. We would be the agency that would oversee it. And I was optimistic that it's something that we certainly are ready for and could address should that language make its way through the legislature. So, Crystal, did I forget anything?
No, that was perfect. The only other thing
before we move on to the next one, Crystal, on the veterans one, I know that I had sent an inquiry to a couple of you. We have a great deal of research that Mark has on, and I know that Crystal worked with earlier, a few years ago, on the impact of gambling in veterans. And I wondered if it makes sense for Karen and Mark to perhaps send that information on veterans, the research that we've done, send it up now, as it might be. I don't know what Karen is just smiling at.
No, someone called and I had to tell them I'm in a public meeting. I can't talk right now.
I got to distract. I thought maybe you threw your phone or something and you were laughing, like you just threw it. So I wondered if it makes sense at this juncture to at least send an email, Karen, with Mark to just outline that research, because it might be helpful as they think about introducing slot machines for the veteran organizations. What do you think, commissioners? It's a thought I've had. And
yeah, in addition to that, I did also just want to state for the record that while I have no doubt our staff could figure out regulating and overseeing a setup like that, I just wanted to make clear that is not without challenges. And so I don't want there to be any misconstruing of people listening to our discussion today that this is sort of would be a seamless integration, because there are absolutely challenges to that setup in addition to what you're talking about, Chair, just the actual implementation, regulation, and payment of that, and funding of that. So I do think that needs to be out there as well, in addition to what you're talking about sending over.
So
thank you. That's a really good point. Maybe the letter could include a couple of bullet points about implementation issues too. Commissioner Hill, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was going to say, I absolutely agree with Eileen on that. And that's why I reached out to our staff, because I red flagged this a few months ago, actually, about the implementation of this language, should it move forward. And I never know, Madam Chair, what we're allowed to lobby and not lobby to our friends in the legislature. But if we can not only give the report on the veterans, they really do need to understand that if they're gonna pass language like this, that money needs to follow it somehow. Because if you read the language, not a lot of the revenues come back to the state. So we couldn't even really set up the fund under this language, as I have read it, to implement this for us. So if we're allowed to say, hey, we need you to not only put some money behind this and share our concerns, I'm absolutely for that, because this is not going to be easy to do.
No, and there's regulatory implementation above and beyond just the money too that is challenging.
Yes. Yeah.
Issues around integrity in terms of how we would be monitoring the slot machines. That's the Attorney General's office knows an awful lot about some of the challenges of the illegal machines. That's not what we're talking about here, but how we regulate slot machines at our casinos is a very different system than how we would be able to regulate the integrity of machines spread out across the Commonwealth. So,
Can I just add one? Can I add one more thing? So, Eileen, you're right, and Madam Chair. So the last section L says right in it, the commission shall, consistent with the public objectives of this chapter established in Section 1, promulgate regulations for the implementation, administration, enforcement of this section, including without limitations regulations that prescribe. And they list about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more things that we would need to do. So yes, absolutely, we need to just share our concerns.
So just I want to go to Commissioner Skinner next, but I just will point out the word lobby makes me always a little nervous. We don't lobby officially, but I know what you're saying. Just advocate, right?
And we probably were at their meetings.
But I do think that's just being very my cautious nilly self. But Karen, I want to get to Commissioner Skinner. I think maybe it makes sense to prepare a letter with just some key bullet points. Let's not overwhelm anyone, but that we just again can repeat here to the public that the Gaming Commission is prepared to discuss this matter and any other piece of legislation that would would impact us as a regulator, and impact meaning we want to be able to do a really good job at whatever we're regulating. So that we're available for conversations and that they should reach out to us, and Karen would be the proper contact for that. Commissioner Skinner, you sat so quietly. Thanks.
I don't have anything more substantive to add. I think you all hit the points of concern, and you've laid out a path to try to address them. So fine with that. I would ask that research around the impact of gambling on veterans be also distributed internally.
Yes. Good. Yes.
The other request that I had, and I know, the list is piling, but it would be good. I know we had recently a silent briefing on the technical standards aspect, or not narrowly technical standards, but we heard from Katrina and her team around what would be required on the technical side if sports betting were to pass. I'm hoping that in the near future, we could, as a commission, get, I don't know if it's at another silent briefing, but just kind of an update on how the agency is preparing now for sports wagering, should it come to fruition. It's been a while. And again, we had that subset, that sub category of a silent briefing, but if we could get something more broad very soon, that would be appreciated.
Madam Chair, can I add one more bullet? And I'm sorry.
Yeah, add another bullet to veterans, and then I'll turn to Crystal on the next one, but veterans, yes.
So there's a section in there that I was very happy to see, should this move forward, which was section J, and had to do with limited slot machines establishment shall keep posted in a big place in their premises. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, wants help, call the Mass Council on Gaming and Health on Safe Gaming Education. They give the phone number, or the Department of Public Health's helpline, and they give that number. So we certainly want to continue, especially after seeing our great report today from our Game Sense folks. that this be part of the legislation should it move forward.
Thank you. And just as something put in the parking lot that for our agenda going forward, I am hoping that you'll agree with me, but notwithstanding whatever happens with respect to sports betting, I do think we need to return to Mark's report and Long's report and Marie Claire's report on advertising, because we should at least think about this with respect to the casino play, no matter what. Well, I didn't want those multiple considerations that are in that important white paper to not be revisited. I just think we'll see what happens with respect to sports wagering, and then think about it with respect to casino play and sports wagering. If sports wagering doesn't pass, we'll think about it with respect to casino play. And so those issues around that language and that kind of language, the font size of that language and all those things, Brad, we can discuss comprehensively. But you're right, I did see that that was in that proposal. But we can do more if it actually goes forward. So, and then to Nikisha's point, Karen, you'll, I know that you're working on a schedule on how to keep us posted about your work. So I echo Commissioner Skinner's desire to keep us on the right cadence. So thank you. Okay, so that's veterans. Crystal, I know you've been monitoring. This one is actually now getting down to the wire a bit. What are we going to do?
Yeah, I think so. The biggest update, certainly, well, they're all, nothing's truly final yet, right? But we're just watching everything regarding that, the veterans bill piece that came out, and then obviously the open meeting law. So the House also did put in a bill that has a provision that would extend the open meeting law, but it's certainly very different from what we've seen in the Senate, and we're awaiting where that goes. But it's close, obviously. We have 3 days to see what happens with that. We have a little bit in the works as to where we would go with the next meeting and or our next agenda setting next week if we pass that date and do not have an extension of the open meeting law, which would allow for remote provision. So we're working in-house on that, but there's some language out there. So there's some sign that maybe this will get passed. And I do believe Commissioner Hill had stated that there was emergency preamble attached to that as well. So if we should see something really quickly.
So remind me, it's right now the deadline on it. The sunset is July 15th?
July 15th, yeah.
For us, it's July 15th. The legislature is going to be in session this Wednesday, Thursday, maybe Friday, to make sure that they can get it done. There were some major differences between the House and Senate language. I don't have it in front of me, but I think the Senate would go to December of 2023. I think the House shortened that till August of 23, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it was March, actually.
March.
Yes, March. And the other big difference is that in the House, they have a intention of after March moving forward with hybrid as a permanence as opposed to a temporary extension. So we should see how that plays out and comes out in some sort of consensus in a couple days. And of course, sports wagering is still in conference committee. So we will see something on that.
I'm optimistic they'll get something done by Friday. And I think the governor's waiting for that bill to come forward as well. The open meeting law.
There are a lot of invested, yes, there's a lot of invested.
Yeah, and because Friday is July 15th, right, guys?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
And I'm assuming everybody knows what an emergency preamble is, right? As soon as it's signed, it goes right into law instead of the 45 days to wait for it.
Yep. So, Todd and Tom, do you have anything you want to add on that? All set? Oh, Tom's on mute, but it looks like he's all set.
I'm all set, Chair.
Okay, Todd?
Yep, no, thank you. That's very thorough.
Okay, so I guess my only question is, helpful, unnecessary to send up a quick version of our last letter that we sent about how much we appreciate the flexibility and of the virtual platform for us as a statewide agency that works with folks from around the world. Allows us to be very nimble, and more than anything, we'll need that flexibility should sports wagering be passed. Should we send it up again with a tweak?
I think we can just offer that we see that this is being debated and we'd like to just reoffer our opinion on it. I mean,
that's not overdoing it, right, Brad?
No, greasy wheel gets the oil.
Tom, what do you think? I know that you walked them up before. I'm not sure if you feel like taking a walk today.
Yeah, we can absolutely do that. We reach out to staff, whatever folks think is the best way to reintroduce our position.
Well, I don't think it would require too much work if we just tweaked it, like Brad said. Just a reminder again of how much we support this and thank them. I mean, we can tell they're really thinking about it. So if it gets done on Friday, we're very, very appreciative.
We're not the only ones talking about this. A lot of our cities and towns, I've been seeing in the newspapers, they're sending their letters as well. So.
Yep. Well, that's been an enhancement of participation, really, right? So, Commissioner Skinner, Commissioner O'Brien, any objection to reissuing that letter? No?
No, not at all. I think it's a good idea.
Commissioner Skinner?
Same.
Okay. All right, then we'll do that. Anything else on legislative update? I just want to add just briefly that also there was the International Association of Gaming Advisors were here just the week before the last conference. Very, very well attended as well. Got the benefit of hearing from a lot of our fellow regulators and the those who represent our licensees, because it was really for the advisors or lawyers in the industry, but a lot of regulators were there. Karen and I really got to it was kind of good because we got to do some work while we went to the conference, and we were there for the full 3 days. I want to thank Mark. He did a really great job on a panel that highlighted responsible gaming. I had the good fortune of introducing the governor, who appeared by video. And we also got to see our licensee's president, Jenny Holliday, at work. She did a wonderful job as the moderator of a fireside chat with PD Gardens' Amy Latimer, which it was a very powerful discussion. And I must say, women were well represented throughout the conference. So we also got to see Alex Dixon at work. You remember Alex when he was at, yeah, he was very powerful, very, very powerful. He's got a great voice. But, yeah, he did a great job. Karen, is there anything you want to add in? Loretta was there, and Nikisha, you were there the first day. Eileen had.
Sorry, I couldn't be there.
I know your intentions were there, and it just wasn't going to happen for you.
No.
So, Karen, anything you want to add? I know there were a lot of
I would echo
takeaways.
the comments about Alex Dixon on the diversity, equity, and inclusion in gaming. He's so good.
Yeah,
he's so good. Yeah. A reminder. I don't know if it's recorded, but he was he touched everybody in the hall in a way that we all need to be remembering that during the course of our work. So it was excellent. And Nikisha, I know that you end up not feeling well the next day, but you had a nice trip planned the third day, and that's offline because that was personal. But I'm looking forward to hearing about your trip. So we
it was more of not feeling well.
I know. Yeah, the second, yeah. Because you were there the first day, but your takeaways, it was good first day, right?
Great first day, yeah.
Great first day, yeah. They did a nice job, and Loretta was there for some of it, and Mark, and Mills showed up, so thank you. But what is really nice is that we have these 3 conferences. Oh, in Boston, it's great for the Commonwealth, great for the city. And both weekends, great weather. So I'm hoping the same for next week's conference too, National Gambling Association, so council. All right, that's all I've got. Anything else for commissioners' updates? Okay. Then with that heard, we're ending at 1:10, which I feel is a much more civilized hour for us to end. And so I appreciate the team's understanding as we work to try to make sure that we have a humanely timed agenda. It's for the benefit of our health commissioners, and I think ultimately the benefit of the good work that the team does. So thank you. Anything else, Karen?
I think we're all set. Thank you.
All right. Commissioners? Make a motion.
Right.
Thank you.
Second.
All right. No further discussion. Then Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
And I vote yes, 4-0. Thanks so much.